Okay, well you won't find the next game in Megabase or any of the chess-based reference works. It's a game from the London League in 2005, and it's between a guy called Leek and Grandmaster Chris Ward, who has been a Dragon specialist for as long as I can remember. He's one of the best Dragon players in the world, and he's written a lot of excellent books on the subject. So it's interesting for me to see him employing the Dragondorf in this game. I know that he believes in this system for black, and he's won many games with it. So let's reach the traditional position after Queen to D2. And now in place of Ramiro Holmes's Queen C7, as seen in the last game, this game showed a slightly different way for black, where he played B5 and Bishop B7 first. Alright, white castled on the queen side, and now Ward employed H6. Again, this very strange move where black is dissuading white from playing Bishop H6. Okay, Leek played King B1, and black played Rook C8. So black's employed a slightly different way of mobilising his queen side in this example. Well, white got on with the traditional king side advance with H4, and now black played H5, which looks slightly peculiar because having played H6 a couple of moves ago, you wouldn't have expected him to play H5. But you have to try to think what white is doing in this position. H5 for black prevents G4 by white and prepares to put a knight on E5. White's general plan in this position, once he's been denied the automatic kingside attack, is usually to crash through in the centre by playing, if I just take this arrow away, moves like F4 and Rook HE1. Well, once white plays H4, the move F4 becomes much less attractive because there's a nice juicy square for a black knight on G4. So this is the motivation behind H5, preparing knight E5, so that if white plays F4 after that, there's a nice square for black on G4. And so white is kind of caught in two minds here. How's he going to play this position? If he can't attack on the king side and he's been denied his play in the centre, isn't the position just more flexible for black? Well, that's black's argument. White plays Rook H E1. Black played Queen to C7. And now white played Bishop G5. What should black be watching out for? Well, he's got to watch out for sacrifices on B5. These must always be taken into consideration when you play the Dragondorf. You've also got to be slightly careful that white doesn't land a crushing attack on E6 and F7. There'll come a position shortly where white can play one of these moves on, for instance, Bishop E6 in a minute, but black manages to ignore that threat. I'll just show you what I mean. White plays Bishop G5 here. Black plays Knight B6, carefully covering the square D5. And here, instead of Queen E2, white could have tried Bishop E6. That's the type of strike which black has always got to be on the lookout for. Now, I don't think it's a good idea for black to take that bishop. For instance, if he takes on E6, knight takes E6 looks quite dangerous for him. After Queen D7, knight takes G7 check, King F7, and then E5. Fortunately, if we go back to Bishop E6, black has an excellent move here in Knight C4, and Ward thought that this was perfectly satisfactory for black, as is the move Rook B8. I think both of these continuations give black a pretty decent game here, and whilst the move Rook B8 looks like a slight concession, if we imagine the knight coming into C4 on the next turn, the bishop taking it off, well, black might even consider taking with the pawn in that position, when the rook could actually start some action on the B file. So going back to Knight B6, it's not at all easy for white to land any of his standard attacking blows on black in this position. And perhaps that's what motivated the move Queen E2. White simply couldn't see what to do. Castles. An interesting moment to play that move, now that Bishop H6 is off the agenda. And white could see black's attack coming on the queen side with B4, with Knight C4, so he decided to go into action in typical fashion with G4. But but I think this move is simply not good enough, and certainly doesn't give white what he'd hoped for in the Yugoslav attack. After all, when you start the action on the king side, you don't want your rook on e1, do you? But I just think that white couldn't see what to do. The inherent flexibility in black's position stands him in good stead. Okay, g4. Black took the pawn. White recaptured. Black went knight c4, a very good square for the knight. And there are certainly possibilities of knight takes b2 in the air, which prompted rook d3, protecting the knight on c3. Queen c5, a very practical move. White was already running out of time in this position, wondering how to build his attack when his automatic attacking tries have been denied to him, and well, black keeps all options open. He cuts out white's possibility of h5. He's preparing the move b4. b4 could happen at any moment. a5 could happen at any moment. Black just simply had a very good version of the usual Yugoslav attack here. Rook ed1. Well, white could of course take on c4. Black recaptures with the b pawn. White runs away. Rook b8. And this just looks very promising for black, a typical dragon where white has no kingside counterplay. So rook ed1. Black plays rook fe8. Another very solid move. Guarding e7. Perhaps giving the black king a bolt hole if needed. And if white ever plays bishop takes f6, then black can consider taking back with the pawn when the rook on e8 is perfectly placed. And now white blunders. Pawn up to h5. Well, of course, that's a terrible move. That was prompted by extreme time trouble. What should white play? Well, probably you just simply retreat with bishop c1. Then I think probably best is e5 here. Knight goes back, knight takes g4. And it's absolutely obvious that black has whatever advantage there is in this position, but white had to do that. Okay, he blundered with h5 because he was under extreme and unusual pressure. And once black had taken that bishop, it was all over. The game concluded. H takes g6, f takes g6, rook f3, e6. White was only playing on because, well, he didn't have enough time to resign. Knight comes to d2, check, king a1, knight takes b3. Interesting choice that. Ward decides to try and put the game away here. b4 rather than take a rook. Queen h2, b takes c3, rook h1, all desperate stuff. C takes b2, king takes b2, and with black just about to take on e4, it was time to resign. So another thought-provoking game where h6 came early, and white simply couldn't see what to do.